Welcome to Making a Murderer, Rubberducky YouTube channel. Welcome back to RD Making a Murderer. It's our daily MaM reading. We're doing the CASO Investigative Reports. We're on part 40. So we're going to do pages 391 through 400. Page 391. Schneider went on to state that a subject named Eugene Schmitz told Schneider about this. According to Schneider, Eugene gets his information from Alan Avery. Schneider indicated that Alan has a brother who was a Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department detective. Schneider stated his brother was demoted during the former Sheriff Tom Kosurik's administration, and subsequently Alan Avery's brother was given a job as a Huber officer. Schneider stated Alan Avery's brother worked this job at least until 1992. Schneider went on to indicate that the smelter located on the Avery property was not running because the EPA laws, and Schneider indicated he believes the Avery family would have gotten fined if they had, in fact, run it. I did use a law enforcement search engine in an attempt to determine whether Charles Avery had ever lived in Appleton, and I was unable to determine whether or not this, in fact, was the case. Investigation continues. Investigator John Dietering, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 392. Type of activity, interview of Christopher M. Pazwiski. Date of activity 01-2606. Reporting officer investigator John Dietering. Documents generated 1-page correspondence written 01-2006 by Chris Pazwiski. On Thursday 01-2606 at 12:12 hours, Investigator Baldwin and I. Dietering did interview the following individual concerning this matter: Christopher M. Pazwiski. Currently a transfer from the Calumet County Sheriff's Department to Dodge Correctional. Pazwiski was housed in D Block with Steven Avery at the Calumet County Jail. It should be noted that Pazwiski was sentenced on 01-2506 to prison for failing to support a child. It had been learned that Pazwiski had written a letter on 01-2006 to jail staff concerning some observations he had made about Steven Avery. Pazwiski indicated that he had no charges pending and was not talking to us for any sort of consideration on any charges. He stated he was totally done with court as far as he knew. I did give Pazwiski a copy of the letter he provided the jail staff. I asked him about the mention he made about Steven Avery, indicating the bones were, quote, too far gone. According to Pazwiski, Avery indicated the bones would be too fire damaged for scientists to conduct any sort of investigation on. Pazwiski indicated he and Avery had recently observed news footage from a lab in Virginia, apparently Quantico, and Steven had indicated also he believed the bones were, quote, too far gone. Pazwiski indicated that Steven told him that while he was in prison for 18 years, he had watched a lot of things on television. Pazwiski stated in his opinion, Steven let on that he knew what he was doing. Pazwiski stated Steven had made the comment, quote, that thing is too far gone. How can they tell? Pazwiski did state Avery had made mention of a mink farm being, quote, just up the road, and that Avery had told him that if you put a body in with the mink would tear it apart and eat it. Page 393. Pazwiski stated Avery told him that Halbach didn't have just one key, that she had a set of keys. Pazwiski asked Avery if Halbach had the keys in her hand when she got out of her vehicle to take the pictures, and Steven did not answer yes or no. Pazwiski questioned as to how Steven would know that she had a full set of keys if she had not brought them with her out of her vehicle. It should be noted this question was not phrased apparently to Avery. Pazwiski stated Avery advised him that at one time they had goats or sheep. Pazwiski could not remember which at the Avery compound. Pezwiski stated he was led to believe that the sheep or goat bones had the same texture as human bones. Pezwiski questioned Avery as to who had created the fire pit. Pezwiski stated at one point Avery told him that he had done it himself, and when Pezwiski posed the question to him at a later date, Avery stated the landlord had done it. I asked Pezwiski if Steven Avery was incarcerated in the same cell block as Pezwiski when Pezwiski wrote the letter on 01/20/06, and he stated Avery had already been transferred to either the hospital or Brown County by this time. I once again asked Pezwiski if he was looking for any legal assistance or financial assistance as a result of his speaking with us. He stated the only interest he had was in helping the Halbach family. Pezwiski stated Avery told him that he does not believe he could be convicted on just one bone, that they would need most of the skeleton. Pezwiski stated he had questioned Avery about the license plates. He had asked Avery if the license plates had been found in his trailer, and according to Pezwiski, Avery had told him the license plates were found in 2 separate cars. Pezwiski stated Avery had told Pezwiski that he believed that someone had gotten into his mobile home, had cleaned up the blood on his sink, and had somehow transferred this blood into Teresa Halbach's vehicle. Pezwiski stated Avery had told him that Avery believes the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department is after him, and further told Pezwiski that the former Manitowoc Sheriff had told Avery, quote, "You'll never get out of this." I am unsure as to whether Avery was referring to Pezwiski stated Avery indicated that everything that was located of an evidentiary value was located by the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. Pezwiski stated Avery told him that Avery believed the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department had items of evidence in their pocket and had dropped them and discovered them. Pezwiski stated Avery told him that Avery believed that someone had somehow gotten hold of perhaps page 394, Teresa Halbach's grandma's bones and had planted them in his burn pit. This is apparently in reference to the mitochondrial DNA being passed from mother to daughter. I asked how Steven is when there is news coverage on regarding this matter. Pezwiski stated Steven watches this with very much interest. Pezwiski stated he would be willing to testify in this matter if so ordered. Pezwiski reiterated that he had absolutely no interest in this case other than from a standpoint of wanting to help the Halbachs. He states he is not in any way related to the Halbachs or anyone else directly involved in this investigation. Pezwiski had nothing else to offer concerning this investigation. Investigation continues. Investigator John Dietering, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 395. Type of activity, follow-up on tip information from Todd M. Halbach. Citizen contact David M. Whitman. Sue M. Vetter. Date of activity 01/19/06. Reporting officer investigator Gary Steyer. On 11/11/05 at 5:28 a.m. The Calumet County Sheriff's Department received information from a Todd M. Halbach, male, white, date of birth 07/11/65. Todd Halbach indicated a David M. Whitman, male, white, date of birth 03/27/64, told him that he was at the Avery Salvage Yard on 10/31/05. On Thursday, 01/19/06, Investigator Steyer did speak with David M. Whitman telephonically. David stated he was with his girlfriend, Sue M. Vetter, female, white, date of birth 03/1856, at the Avery Salvage Yard on Monday, 10/31/05, between the hours of 12:30 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. Whitman needed a part for 95 GEO Metro and spoke with Steven Avery, who waited on them. Whitman and Vetter, who I both spoke with on the phone, stated Steven was very cold and did not talk much to either individual. They stated Steven Avery did wait on them for the part and was very short. Whitman stated he had shaken Steven Avery's hand because he had asked Vetter if That was the individual who had been wrongfully imprisoned. David Whitman stated he did not observe any tire burning and did have a receipt for the part of the vehicle. Sue Vedder indicated she had been in contact by a private attorney, Stefanik, who had questioned both her and David Whitman on their being at the Avery Salvage Yard on 10/31/05. Both Vedder and Whitman did not see anything suspicious and merely stated they had observed Steven Avery between the hours, page 396, of 12:30 p.m. and approximately 1 o'clock p.m. or 1:30 p.m. Vedder indicated they were back in Manitowoc at 1:30 p.m. Investigator Gary Steyer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 397. Type of activity follow-up on tip information from Thomas F. Misko. Jill A. Peterson, Misko. Date of activity 01/1906. Reporting officer investigator Gary Steyer. On 11/10/05 at 12:15 p.m. The Calumet County Sheriff's Department received information from Jill and Thomas Peterson Misko. Thomas and Jill Peterson Misko stated they were at the Avery Salvage Yard 1 week prior to Teresa Halbach missing. On Thursday, 01/1906, Investigator Steyer of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department and DCI Agent Schmidt spoke with Jill and Thomas Peterson Misko at their residence in Manitowoc. Jill and Thomas stated they were at the Avery Salvage Yard on Monday 1 week prior to the day Teresa Halbach was missing. Jill and Thomas stated they had observed news footage in which Steven Avery stated he had not been in the pit area for approximately 1 month. Jill and Thomas indicated they had been at the Avery compound for approximately 45 minutes and had observed Steven Avery driving back and forth from the pit area. Jill and Thomas indicated also with them was a Lyle Roeder and provided a phone number of 578-1973 to investigators. Investigator Steyer spoke with Lyle Roeder, who indicated he had Charles Avery replace his starter. He stated Steven Avery was working on a forklift all morning, moving cars. Investigator Gary Steyer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 398. Type of activity follow-up on tip information from Kimberly A. Havel. Date of activity 01/1906. Reporting officer investigator Gary Steyer. On 11/15/05 at 8:30, the Calumet County Sheriff's Department had received information from a Kimberly A. Havel, female, white, date of birth 09/17/67. Kimberly indicated a Jeff Wozni, whom she and her husband had not heard from for 2 years, had stopped by on Sunday 11/13/05, was rather agitated talking about Steven Avery. Jeff Wozni mentioned a Bill Wilhelm and a Ron Wright as being involved. On Thursday, 01/1906, Investigator Steyer and DCI Agent Schmidt spoke with Kimberly Havel at her residence. She indicated her husband, John M. Havel, male, white, date of birth 02/05/60, had a conversation with Jeff Wozni at their home. Kimberly Havel described Jeff Wozni as appearing to be trying to stay away from the police or hiding from the police. Kimberly stated Wozni had thought the drug unit was after him in the Manitowoc area. Investigator Gary Steyer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 399. Type of activity, interview of Mary A. Coppersmith. Date of activity 01/1906. Reporting officer investigator Gary Steyer. On Thursday, 01/1906, Investigator Steyer of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, along with DCI Agent Schmidt, spoke with Mary Coppersmith at her place of employment at McDonald's in Two Rivers. I asked Mary if she stated to Barb Yonda that she had seen Teresa Halbach at McDonald's the day of her disappearance. Mary Coppersmith stated she had never said that. She indicated she had wondered if Halbach had eaten in the area when she was talking to Barb Yonda. Coppersmith denies ever seeing Halbach at the McDonald's. Investigator Gary Steyer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 400. Type of activity follow-up. Citizen contact Greg W. Batten. Date of activity 01-1906. Reporting officer investigator Gary Steyer. On Thursday, 01-1906, Investigator Steyer spoke telephonically with Greg W. Batten, male white, date of birth 10/31/60. Greg Batten removes Freon from AC units on vehicles at the Avery Salvage Yard and has a list of vehicle identification numbers, VIN, for all the vehicles he has done in the past. Greg informed Investigator Steyer, should any police agency need a VIN from the Avery Salvage Yard, he would cooperate with investigators in attempting to locate VINs. Investigator Gary Steyer, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Time for our review. So it's kind of a short review. We're going to start with page 391, and we're talking to a gentleman named Schneider. Now remember, we're going to scroll up to 390, which was yesterday's read, and we're talking to Gordon Schneider. And it has me thinking, is he one of the Schneider boys, or is he related to the Schneider boys? They're the guys, remember, that they said that a cop told them that Steven Avery was being set up by the cops. So I'm just curious. We've got the two similar names. He talks about Chuck Avery not living far away from Lori DePies, and that he suspects that Chuck may have had something to do with the disappearance, I think. He talks about how DePies, Teresa, and Kathy being Chuck's ex-wife, that has passed away, all had the same color hair as well as the same hairstyle. Then he goes on to say that he gets his information from Eugene Schmitz, who's friends with Alan Avery. And he states that Alan's brother was demoted when former Sheriff Thomas Kusurek. Now, Thomas Kusurek was the sheriff when Steve Avery was arrested in 1985. So, apparently, when Tom Kusurek got sheriff, he demoted Alan Avery's brother and gave him just a Huber job. And then he went on to say, John Dietering, he looks into Charles Avery to see if he lived in Appleton, but he's unable to determine whether or not that's a fact. What? What kind of checking is he doing? I mean, how hard would it be to find out Charles Avery's previous address? Page 392, we have January 26, 06, at this interview with Pez Whiskey is talking. So he's an inmate, and he has shared the same cell block with Stephen. And then he writes a note to the jailer. Now, they talk about how nothing's due the guy. He's not asking for anything, that his court case is over, so he's just doing it to help the Halbachs. But if you look at the dates, Pezwisky wrote the letter 1/20/06 to the jail staff concerning the stuff about Avery. But he wasn't sentenced until the 25th. So he wrote this 5 days prior to being sentenced. I wonder if he had anything about, we'll go a little lenient on you if you write the letter. But what he does state isn't that all that bad. It makes actually perfect sense from a standpoint of, you're watching the news in prison or jail, the same cell block, so jail, to find out what's going on in your case is what Stephen's doing. And Stephen made the comment according to Pezweski. He alleges that Stephen said, that thing is too far gone. How can they tell? Well, that's what we all thought when we saw pictures too, is that the bones don't look like they're going to be able to be told, detailed as to who they belong to through science because they look too far gone. He states Avery made mention of a mink farm just being up the road. I think Avery is racking his brains how this happened. And he's worried that the body has been disappeared, maybe cleaned off by the mink. Did I say monks? I'm sorry. Minks, and then maybe the bones were used to reburn and plant on his pet. He's looking to understand what's happened because he knows he didn't do it. And you can tell that because Avery told him that Halbach didn't just have one key, that she had a set of keys. Well, that may be. He put his hand on her car. He probably saw that, and he's concerned that they're planting a key in his apartment. It should be noted that none of the question got asked to Avery. It was just a presumptuous question by Pezweski. But here's the important part. According to him, he states that Steven told him the license plate were found in 2 separate cars. But that is not true. So obviously, if Steven did do it, we would have found the license plates in 2 different cars, but we don't. And then he goes on to state that Avery told him that he believes someone had gotten into his mobile home, cleaned up the blood in a sink, and somehow transferred the blood into Teresa's car. Why would he say that if he did it? To look innocent, perhaps, yeah. But the truth is, he's been saying that all along, that blood disappeared out of the sink. So someone took the blood out of the sink, and who cleaned up the sink? Why would you take the blood and then completely remove it? Like tidying the area up. Pezweski goes on to say that Avery believes Manitowoc Sheriff Department is after him and told him that the former Manitowoc Sheriff had told Avery, "You'll never get out of this one," or this. Yeah. He says that Steven reported that everything of evidentiary value, anything with evidence related, was all located by the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, which is basically true. Avery believed the Manitowoc Sheriff Department had items of evidence in their pockets and had dropped them and then discovered them. It sounds crazy in the beginning when somebody says that, but now, what do you guys think? Could they have had items in their pockets and then dropped them and rediscovered them? Well, I can't say I call him crazy because, well, he also goes on to say, is it possible that that's Teresa Halbach's grandmother's bones? Good question, Stephen. We're still asking it today. There's a little bit here on 395. It talks about Vetter and Whitman were at the salvage yard on the 31st. But it's a little confusing to me because Stephen reportedly went home, I had always heard, around 11:30. But it must not have if they're seeing him between 12:30 and 1 o'clock or 1:30. So I would say between 12:30 and 1, Stephen was still at the yard working, or at the office working. And that's about it, really. The rest of this is, the McDonald's lady. A guy can do the VIN number. Let's see. These people say they don't have anything to do with the area. There is a gentleman, Jeff Wasney, was acting all crazy at these people's home. He hadn't been there in 2 years. He acted like he was hiding from the police, and he thought that the drug unit was after him in Manitowoc area. Who knows if that's even case related. He did seem to be agitated about Steve Avery. Maybe there is a connection between Steve Avery and Jeff Wasney. I'm not sure. We have a couple names, a Bill Wilhelm and a Ron White being involved. Or, I'm sorry, Ron Wright. Interesting. But it doesn't really go into detail. Maybe they'll do that in a later report. I do want to bring up this. These are reports. These are not statements by the witnesses. These could have been put together much later than they're dated. They are being dictated to a person that's reiterating them. So they're not really a copy of what the person's writing. They are an interpretation that they've gathered. Okay? And we continue on. We have had 400 pages, you guys. Well, that was an interesting read for sure. I don't know, you guys. Everybody just seems like they're making stuff up. This entire event just isn't fitting well together no matter what. The interviews are confusing. They're disconnected. Why are they interviewing these certain individuals when they could be doing follow-ups on the known suspects? All right. Thank you guys so much for your support for Brendan and Stephen and their safety through public awareness, and also our channel. If you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't do the time. And I left you a little picture of the Hilbert historical sign.